Granted, they're movies, but you would think that after enough times of people just coming across someone that's a complete stranger, minding their own business, going about their day, you would just think, you know, even if you're evil, I don't know, just at this point, maybe leave them alone.
This is not about who's the strongest. This is about not giving up. We have a word for that in Finland.
Sisu! And today we have Sisu. Before I get too into this, I do want to give a shout out. This is once again, they're doing them more and more, and I think they're getting more successful because we're actually getting some pretty good films to work with here. But Regal Cinemas, thank you. Cool stuff. Because guess what? A mystery movie is a mystery movie, and this was the mystery movie. So I got to see it, I think, 10 or 11 days before its release. So cool, dope. Maybe that'll help boost the numbers. Probably not. This is a weird crossroads between a film that I thought was going to be getting more press, and I guess a film that wasn't getting a whole lot of press. I've liked the marketing for this one because the trailer popped up out of nowhere on my feed, and literally the trailer itself is like so violent that they tell you like, hey, we can't show this trailer. Like, unless there's an R-rated film you're about to watch and we can show the red band trailer, all we can do is show you 3 seconds of this old guy's face and tell you to watch the trailer yourself. Basically, whenever you see a movie like this, one of the first things you think of, or similar films, is, oh, it's like John Wick, it's like this, it's like that. Old man finds gold, minding his own business, trying to get out of Dodge. I think Finland, is where he's trying to flee, as the Nazis are losing the war. And so the Nazis, in a very spiteful act of retreat and also just spite and vengeance, is just scorched earth and just destroying what they can on their way out, come across this guy. They see he's a prospector, they see that he has gold, they take his gold, and then he fights back. And then the Nazis hear that fighting, come back to investigate, and find their dead comrades, and decide to go on a quest to pursue this old man, to kill him and get his gold. And then you have your movie. And of course the old man has like a dog and a horse, so you see all this and you see, you know, oh, unassuming man ends up being a one-man army, like a murder machine, so you think it's like John Wick. It's a trope in film that's been around for a long time, but in the last 10 years or so, in the last like 5 to 10 years, people would often see films that are like this and then immediately compare it to, oh, so it's like John Wick but XYZ. Which it is, but it isn't, but it kind of is. Sisu is directed by a Finnish writer and director by the name of Jalmari Helander. Maybe it's Jalmari. Shocker, I was unfamiliar with the name, but I was surprisingly familiar with little bits and pieces of his filmography. A couple of films that he's done previously, most recently that actually did grace our American cinemas, but I unfortunately did not get a chance to see yet. Big Game. Samuel L. Jackson and this other kid trying to survive after like a plane crash, or in the forest. I think it's also kind of action survival thrillers. So, and the other one that I almost forgot this movie existed, it came back out in 2010, but this film that I don't think anybody else heard about this one, but it's called Rare Exports. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's this like Swedish or Finnish group that are out in the snowy mountains of wherever, and they're doing their thing, and they come across basically Santa Claus, but the more like Krampus, skeevy, disheveled man, person, being, and I think they cage him and are trying to, I forget what they're trying to do, if they're trying to sell him or take him somewhere, but I watched it once a long time ago and recall liking it. So star power, a couple people that I'm not too familiar with, but we had our lead, who I thought killed it in this role, Jorma Tomila, or Jorma, Jorma, he's our main man, our Sisu here. And then, you know, a lot of the cast, and they're either some of the female hostages or for the most part just, you know, nameless Nazi assholes who are getting gunned down, stabbed, tortured, mutilated, stuff like that. So, I mean, nobody of a special note. It was kind of funny. I talked about it with a friend. We did have discount Mads Mikkelsen here. Axel Hennie. Funny enough, this guy apparently was in The Martian, that Matt Damon movie about surviving on Mars. He was in that. And he was in a movie called The Trip, which funny enough, I didn't even remember seeing a trailer for this, but I did, because I looked at the plot summary, and it's like this couple that are going on a retreat to try to save their marriage, but they both have plans to kill each other. I wanted to see it. It did look good. So surprisingly, I did kind of sort of tiny bit know him from something. Relatively brief. It's not a whole lot to say about this film. I thought it was a release for this year, but it turns out I think it's just getting like international release. It's hitting US cinemas in about 10 or 11 days, but online it says the film came out last year, so technically it's a 2022 film. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun time. I've seen better caliber from this like subgenre of film. It's a simple and yet effective premise. Just a one-man army who lost his home, his family, his everything, and so it tried to escape the war and just kind of do his own thing, pan for gold. He struck it rich. And then sure enough, these Nazi assholes just happen across his path and decide to try to take advantage of him. So, of course, they're going to spark that soldier again to then start killing. Most Americans, like let's say 95%, if we're being liberal with my estimates. It's a shame that I can't say 100, but I know the state of the country that I live in. 95% of Americans enjoy watching Nazis be killed. I am one of them. Nazis are not great. They never have been. So it's always fun to see a new game, Wolfenstein, a new movie, Revenge, whatever, Inglourious Bastards, this, that, and the other. It's always fun to see a film where it's just, oh, here's a character you can root for, here are some Nazis that you definitely want to root against, and boom, he's going to just brutally murder these guys, and most, if not almost everybody, is going to enjoy it. And I did. It was solid. The action was good. It was nice and violent, which is what we were kind of expecting. I don't think it was gratuitous, funny enough. I thought it was going to be like hyper violent, but it wasn't. When violence was called for, people are definitely getting, heads stabbed through, blown apart, shot up, or gunned down, or stabbed and sliced. But I almost want to say it wasn't quite as bad as I thought it would be. Maybe I'm just desensitized to cinematic violence at this point, but I feel like if something's violent enough, it'll still, get to me a little bit. The effects were great, by the way. The visual effects, any of the digital stuff was good. All the practical stuff, in which there was a lot of practical effects in this, always a win for me. Whenever there was digital, it looked good. It was all presentable. Cinematography was nice. It's a lot of open plains and fields, and just a lot of it's just horizons and sun going up or down, smoke, fog, occasional derelict structures here and there, but you can kind of tell wherever they went to go film this, they just chose open roads and open places. I'm sure it was easier for them, probably easier on the budget, and for the sake of the plot and what they were working with, it was effective. It brings the focus in on the characters and what's happening in the environment than getting lost in the environment. What I liked a lot was what NAZI-KILLIN almost did, which I reviewed previously on my channel. Sisu, I'm going to say basically does. Our main character does not speak. He conveys all his emotion, any rage, shock, pain, anger, sadness. He can all through the eyes, the face, the body, some grunts and screams here and there. But he has, I'm not going to say when it happens, but he has 2 lines in the film. That's it. And this film's almost 2 hours, but this man is just trucking along, doesn't say a word, fewer words than John Wick, funny enough. But you know what? End of the day, he doesn't really need to speak, and I appreciate how they kind of kept with that. They just oh, this guy, you got it. People will fill you in on the backstory as the Nazis are trying to radio in and find out who he is, and what his character basically speaks through his actions. So I'm on board. I thought it was handled well. I liked that. I like a film that kind of can make bold decisions like that and land them. Everybody else was good. Everybody else either played a shithead Nazi asshole, or we had a main villain who wasn't a compelling villain. I was curious to see how they would handle his gradual motivation, and I feel like they handled it pretty well. I suppose the only cons I could say for the film, it doesn't really reinvent the subgenre. You watch the trailer, you're getting exactly what you see. There's nothing subversive or crazy, nothing, like I said, nothing to reinvent any aspect of this. It's just, you see the trailer, that's what the movie's going to be. And if you like that kind of stuff, you're in for a good time. The whole idea is this guy just refuses to die. So of course, as you're going through, he's surviving this, that, and the other. And, you got to kind of turn off your brain a little bit and just accept this. which is in a way another con, is that I never really felt any sense of stake. There were some good scenes of tension for sure, but the way they played up this character and just the feeling you get from the movie, and as you go through and seeing what he can survive, you kind of figure out by the end of Act 1 or Chapter 1 or what have you, this guy has got some pretty heavy plot armor on, and he's probably going to either, make it right up until almost the end or make it through all the way through. I'm not going to say which one, but, you can tell that he's going to be chugging around for a while. I mean, I suppose you could really pick this movie apart even more if you really wanted to. I don't know how many reviews were on Rotten Tomatoes, but when I looked it up after the movie, it's very high up there in terms of rating. But I think they played it safe, they played it kind of close to the chest, and it worked well for them. They knew what they were about, they knew what kind of film they wanted to make, and they just made it. There's also some dark comedy throughout, just little bits of like, oh, here's a minefield, and in the trailer, the commander is like, all right, you two, you go check it out. And just little moments like that are just throughout the film where it's just very dark humor, fairly creative kills here and there. Not a lot of creativity in terms of kills, and directing's good with most of it. The choreography and the combat is, fine, good, brutal, definitely brutal throughout. I got like a weird rating for this one. I might seem like I'm just kind of stumbling around right now. I'm just kind of at a loss. I don't have a lot of things to say about the film. I really enjoyed it. I would be down to watch it again. I didn't love it as a film. It accomplishes what it set out to do. My enjoyment, I really enjoyed it. Didn't love it. I think it's safe to say that I would give this a low 4 out of 5. I think giving Sisu a low 4 out of 5 is probably a safe bet. When it comes to theaters, check it out. It was a fun, bloody good time. If you're not into any of that kind of stuff, then you can definitely skip this one. But whether you watch it in the theater or wait for it to stream when it comes home, you're in for a good time. But thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of whatever movie I review. And goodbye, travelers.